Right. Today we'll start a topic with the Hindus editorial, that is COVID-19 and the crumbling world order. Today we'll start the class with this the topic of COVID-19, COVID-19 and the crumbling world order. Right. So which was published in the Hindu paper, in today's Hindu paper. So, globally, societies could become more self-seeking and inward-looking. Right? So, this single line states the summary of the article. Right? So, the present world would seek and would become, right? Societies would become more self-seeking and inward-looking. More self-seeking and inward-looking. Right? So this is what the status. This would be the status of the present world order, right? So we'll go into the deeps of this. We'll go into the details of this article. So COVID-19, right, will fundamentally transform the world, right, as well as the world order. So its balance of power, right, right, traditional conceptions of national security and the future of globalization. So once again I'm repeating, COVID-19 will fundamentally transform the world as we know it. The world order, the balance of power, traditional conceptions of national security and the future of globalization. So the lethal combination of an interconnected world and a deadly virus without cure is taking humanity into an uncharted waters. So what we emerge from lockdown, we must be ready to confront a new political and social realities. Right? So this line clearly states the world, all the nations entirely, they should confront to a new political and social realities. Right? They should confront the new political and social realities, right? So this COVID-19 will fundamentally alter the balance of powers, the global world order, and the conception of the traditional concept of national security as well as the future of globalization. So this is what the topic and the highlights of the topic, right? The crumbling world order. The rampant spread of COVID-19, right, is also a failure of contemporary world order and its institutions. So whatever the remains of institutions that have been created, right, these are the architects of the Second World War. So whatever remains of the institutions created by the victors of World War was a hegemonic exercise meant to deal with the isolated political and military crisis, not serve humanity at large. Right? So whatever the institutions that have been created now are the institutions that we see now, they are the remains of Second World War, and these institutions at a large, they are meant to deal with political and military crisis, but not a humanitarian crisis. Right? Right? So this is one thing. The regional institutions have, right, haven't fared any better. Right? Even, right, you take the international institutions, right, they have totally failed in meeting the present challenges. You take the example of UN Security Council, right, took so long to meet to discuss the pandemic is a ringing testimony of UN's insignificance. Right? The UN Security Council took so long to meet to discuss the pandemic is a ringing testimony of UN's insignificance. That means UN has become insignificant in the present crisis, right? So coming to the regional institutions haven't fared any better. Though a call was given for a virtual summit of SARC, right? So these institutions, particularly the regional institutions, they have been short-lived. These regional institutions, practically dead institutions, and they were short-lived. Alright, take the example of EU. The most progressive post-national regional agreement stood clueless when the virus spread like a wildfire. Right? So all this, you take the example of EU, you take the example of SARC. So they have short-lived in their expectations. Right? So all this is indicative of all this is an indicative of a deeper malaise. The global institutional framework is unrepresentative, a pawn in the hands of great powers. Right? So the global institutions. So again, I want to again we should recollect that these institutions are handy creations of the victors of Second World War. So these global institutions, these global institutional architecture of 1940s cannot help humanity face the challenges, right? Face the challenges of the 2020s, right? So these global institutions, they cannot meet, they are not in a position to meet the humanitarian challenges of 2020, right? So this is now clearly evident in the backdrop of pandemic, right? So, so here this is what about the responsiveness of the responsiveness and the response of the global institutions. So neoliberal economic globalization have taken major beating in the wake of pandemic, right? So neoliberalization, right? Particularly neoliberal economic globalization. So economists are warning about a global recession, right? So even as the virus is pushing back the success of neoliberal globalization political counterpart is found wanting in a deal with the situation, right? So here, even after the virus, this neoliberal globalization or the economic globalization will take a major beating, right? The first instinct of every major economy was to close borders, look inwards, and localize. We see, right? In the aftermath of this pandemic, even if pandemic comes down, if the virus comes down, in the aftermath of the pandemic, right? So this globalization will take a new shape. The first instinct of every major economy is to close borders, look inwards, and localize. The pre-existing structural weakness of the global world order and the COVID-19 shock will further feed the state's protectionism, right? So already every country, even the global economy was facing the global economy was facing a kind of a recession, right? And specifically take India. So even just before the pandemic started, every country, particularly India, was on the verge of a recession, right? So now this recession was aggravated by the problem of COVID-19, right? So COVID-19 shock will further feed states protections, right? So protectionist tendencies fueled by hypernationalism. So that is what the point is. Here, what we should understand is the future of neoliberal economic globalization after the pandemic. So one point is very clear that after this pandemic, so neoliberal economic globalization will see a bleak future. It will see a bleak future, and it will. Alright, these countries which once upon a time or which once favored this economic liberalization will start having an inward and a localizing preferences rather than globalization preferences. So globalization will be replaced by localization. Outward looking will be replaced by inward looking, right? So this will be the effect. This will be the aftermath effect of pandemic, right? So a more inclusive global political and economic order is unlikely in the coming times, Instead, right, as said by the former national security advisor, right, we are headed for a poorer, meaner, and a smaller world, right? So, the 1990s, the era of 1990s brought the element of globalization, a bigger world, but now the decade of 2020s will provide, the decade of 2020s, right, makes the world shrink, right? That is, the world will become a smaller world, poorer and the meaner, right? So here, the big industrial giants will be replaced by states, right? So there will be a state intervention to avoid unpredictable supply sources, avoid geopolitically sensitive zones, and national demands for emergency reserves. The profits of big corporations will reduce and the demand for stability will increase. So here another point that we should know is, here we see a replacement of markets by states, right? Big corporations, right, which once upon a time, big corporations which once upon a time dictated the production, supply chains, and backup plans will be limited by an increased state intervention, right? You see a reverse in the global world order. We see a reverse in the global world order where the markets will be limited and the role of state getting increased, right? So this is what another outcome that is expected, right, in the after this pandemic, right? So we see a role change again. We see a role change in the state. We see a role change of the state, right? So this is what will be seen. This is what will be seen after the pandemic, right? So some would gradually argue all this could potentially mean a retreat from the hyper globalization at its attendant flaws, right? So all this would mean a retreat of hyper globalization, So state intervention in the economic matters and protectionism are the easy way out, and that's precisely what states will do, right? So to meet the existing challenges, right, the challenges could be met effectively only with the state interventions. State intervention in the economic matters and protectionism are the easy way out, right? So, and this will take in a different shape. Again, we see that is, it would be written off licensing Raj through a back door, right? And not a push for inclusive and responsible government with its associated political benefits. A return of a licensing Raj to the back door, that is, state regulation in a different form, state control in a different form. The state has failed. The state has failed in its ability to save us from the pandemic, notwithstanding its sole claim about national security preparedness. Though every state talks about preparedness, national security preparedness, but this preparedness has been dominated by the weakness of the state in meeting the challenges of pandemic. So this pandemic has brought the hollowness of state preparedness, right? So, right, it is not about developing nations or weaker nations, it is about developed nations, right? So this pandemic has brought out the hollowness of the preparedness of the developed nations, right? So, and the state has returned with a more power, legitimacy, and surveillance technology, right? So here we see a total change, right, in the role of state. A state which has, right, a state which has given itself with the ultimate powers, but now this state is in a shape of relooking its own role, right? So with the severe beating that globalization has taken, the state-led models of globalization and economic development would be preferred over big corporate-led globalization. So state-led globalization versus what you call market-led globalization. That is what the debate is. So with the severe beating that globalization has taken, the state-led models of globalization and economic development will be preferred over a corporate-led globalization. Right. So this is an interesting points to note. Right. So these lines, right, state-led globalization versus market-led globalization, and right in the coming days, it will be the state-led globalization. A state-led models of globalization will be preferred over the market-led globalization. Right. So given the symbiotic relationship between the state and big capital, states have become used to protect the interest of their corporations, often at the cost of general public. So, right, this is what the important question that raises. Even if state is leading the globalization prospects, but we know that there is a clear relationship between a symbiotic relationship between state and the big capital. States have become used to protect the interest of big corporations. So even in the case of state-led globalization, now to what extent the public interest will be protected? To what extent the interest of the poor are protected? So right, there is no use of state-led globalization if the interest of general public are protected. Right? So unless this relationship between, alright, unless this relationship between markets and state is subordinated to the relationship between public and the state, people and the state, right? So unless this former relation is subordinate to the latter relationship, right, state-led globalization will not bring the desired results, right? So now another challenge that is posed in the aftermath of pandemic is new age of racism. So societies could become more self-seeking and inward-looking, leading to further pushback against liberal policies regarding migration and refugees. Right? So every country will prefer protectionism. Every country will try to protect their own people. Now here it is in this backdrop there will be a fear of protecting the migrants. So already every country, particularly the developed countries, started imposing regulations on the migrants. Developed countries have asked the migrants to leave their countries. Alright, so here this would pose a new threat. That is a threat of racism, right? A new form of racism, not only internationally but even at the local levels, right, within the national level. Right, this will be a major problem, right? So lockdowns, travel restrictions, social distancing itself, right, will create these problems, right? The ill effects of this would be, right, would be on what do you call, the ill effects of these restrictions will be on problem of migration, right? So tragically, therefore, one answer to global pandemic is political globalization. Alright, so political globalization should forerun the economic globalization. Right, so political globalization should be seen as a forerunner of economic globalization. So until and unless all the nations are politically united, then the fight against the pandemic or the restructuring of the world cannot possible. It is not possible without this global political globalization. Right. So here I would summarize the entire article in 3 to 4 points. So the existing institutional mechanisms that are present at now, they are designed by the countries after Second World War, particularly those countries which have dictated, those countries which had assumed power after the Second World War. And these institutions, that is the post Second World War institutions, are more responsive for political and military crisis but not for humanitarian crisis, right? So these institutions which are in the hands of big powers are not able to respond to the ongoing human crisis, right? Simply to say, the existing institutions are neutral, existing institutions are unresponsive to the human crisis. This is what the working of multilateral institutions or global institutions. Coming to regional institutions, even regional institutions, as they are packed up with their own problems, now they are short-lived in their response to the pandemic, right? And this is what the failure of global institutions as well as regional institutions. Now, what will be the outcome of this pandemic? So, here one of the outcome is there will be a threat to globalization. There will be a threat to globalization, particularly threat to neoliberal economic globalization, right? So this neoliberal economic globalization will be replaced by inward looking and localization, right? Localization of the nation. It is that this globalization will be replaced by protectionism and localization. Alright, this is one outcome. Second outcome is, right, the second outcome is, as states are fighting the problem, as states have more responsibility, there will be more state intervention rather than the market interventions. So markets and big corporations will be replaced by state intervention, state taking control of the economic spheres, state taking control of social, economic and political spheres, right? So definitely this pandemic and aftermath of pandemic will bring a retreat from hyper globalization, right? And state intervention in economic matters and protectionism will be seen as the easy way out, right? State intervention in economic matters and protectionism will be seen as easy way out, and this state intervention will be in the form of state control and regulation. So it is nothing but a new form of a licensing Raj. This state intervention will be in the form of, right, it will be in new form of licensing Raj, right? So one way out to protect this globalization is, right, globalizing politically, right? So political globalization should be a forerunner of the economic globalization, right, where the interests of all the countries should be protected, right? Particularly the interest of developed and particularly the interest of developing and underdeveloped countries, right? So this is what the entire summary of the article, right? So don't go into the deeps of this article, try to read. So just read, just try to focus on those points which I have highlighted and try to remember the points which I have repeated. So do you have any doubts on this topic? So this topic is particularly helpful for essay as well as paper 1, GS paper 2. So a state-led models of globalization, and economic development. A state-led model of globalization and economic development would be more preferable the state-led models of globalization and economic development would be more preferable when compared to market-led globalization. When compared to market-led globalization, in the changing world order, in the changing world order. The changing world order. Explain. Explain. Right? So this is the topic which I took from Indian Express. So slowest since economic reforms 3 decades back. World Bank sees at financial year 2021, right? India's growth rate 1.5% to 2.8 percentage. So the issue is about World Bank projecting India's growth rate for the financial year 2021, right, at a rate of 1.5 to 2.8 percentage, which is slowest since economic reforms 3 decades back, right? So in its South Asia Economic Focus Report, the World Bank saw the region comprising 8 countries growing at by 1.8% to 2.8% this year, down from the 6.3 it projected 6 months ago, right? So this is what the projections of World Bank on India as well as the South Asian countries. So in its South Asian Economic Focus Report, the World Bank saw the region, right, growing at a rate of 1.8 percentage to 2.8 percentage, right, which was down from 6.3 percentage it has predicted. So India is likely to record its worst growth performance since 1991 liberation. So this fiscal, right, as the coronavirus outbreak severely disrupts the economy, the World Bank said on Sunday, right? So India's economy is expected to grow at 1.5 percentage to 2.8 percentage in the financial year 2021, right? This started on April 1st. So the World Bank said in its South Asia Economic Focus Report, right? So India's growth performance since 19, so it is the worst performance since 1991, right? So India is expected to grow at a rate of 1.5% to 2.8 percentage, right? So as said by World Bank. So it is estimated India will grow 4.8% to 5% in 2019-20 fiscal that ended on March 31st. Right? The COVID-19 outbreak came at a time when India's economy was already slowing due to persistent financial sector weakness. To contain it, the government has imposed lockdown, shutting the factories and business, suspending flights, so and restricting the mobility of goods and people. Right. So the revival of, right, the resulting domestic supply and demand disruptions, right, are expected to result in the sharp decline in the growth. Right. So the resulting domestic supply and demand disruptions are expected to result in a sharp growth deceleration in fiscal year 20 in the financial year 2021. Right. So a revival in the domestic investments is likely to be delayed given enhanced risk aversion on the global scale and the renewed concerns about financial sector resilience. Right. So it is expected that the domestic investments is likely to be delayed. Right. So domestic investments is likely to be delayed given the fact of risk aversion. Right. Given the fact of risk aversion. Right. So every investor will try to protect their own investments and no one want to take the risk. So in the process of risk aversion, right, so there will be a fall, definitely there will be a fall in the domestic investments, right? So the World Bank joins a chorus of international agencies that have made a similar cut in the growth estimates in the recent days on concerns about COVID-19, right? The Asian Development Bank sees India's economic growth slipping to 4% in the current fiscal, right? While S&P Standard & Poor Global Ratings have further slashed its GDP growth forecast for the country to 3.5 percentage, right, which was a downgraded from 5.2 percentage points. right? So here to take ADB, S&P, right? So projecting the India's economic growth rate at 4% and 3.5% respectively, right? So the rating agencies like Finch has put its estimates for India's growth rate at 2%, while India's ratings and research has revised its financial year 21 forecast to 3.6 percentage from 5.5 percentage. So overall, we can say that India's growth rate, it will be in between 3.5 percentage. Right? It will be around 3.5 percentage. Right? So this is what the this projection of India's economic growth rate, right? So India's economic growth rate is projected to grow at an average of 3.5 percentage according to World Bank, according to other credit rating agencies. But I'm sorry, according to ADB and other credit rating agencies. Whereas World Bank has projected the economic growth rate for India at 1.8 percentage to 2.5 percentage, right? Right. So in its report released on Sunday, the World Bank saw the South Asian region comprising of 8 countries. South Asian region comprising of 8 countries, right, will grow at 1.8 to 2.8 percentage. Its 2019-20 estimate for India at 4.8 to 5 percentage is lower by 1.2 to 1 percentage of the estimates made in October 2019. Right. So here just focus on the point about the India's focus rate. So the green shots of the rebound that were observable at the end of 2019 have been overtaken by the negative impacts of the global crisis. So though there were certain boosting up measures were taken, but these measures were overshadowed by the negative impacts of global crisis. Negative impacts of global crisis. The World Bank report said. So, adding India has set just aside 1% of GDP for programs to increase health sector spending and compensate the unemployed, with the bulk of money going towards cash transfers, free goods and free food and gas cylinders and interest-free loans. Alright, so India has set aside over 1% of GDP for programs to increase health sector spendings and compensate the unemployed, with bulk of the money going towards cash transfers, free food and gas cylinders and interest-free loans. Right. So, taking this into note, taking this spendings of government into note, right, one can expect that there would be a lower growth rate. There would be a lower growth rate among the countries, right, particularly India, right? So, and this is how you should see if you take this article, the point here to remember is what India should do to increase its GDP growth rate, or what are those factors that determine economic growth of the nation, particularly in the present circumstances, right? So you should know what all the factors are important in determining the economic growth. First thing. Second thing is, what are the contemporary factors that should be taken into account, right, to boost the Indian economy? Am I clear to you? Am I clear to you on this topic of economic growth rate?